of writing that first or even your second or third low or no emission grant application. First, we'll have Kara Marcus from National RTAP run through how to use the webinar, the GoToWebinar system, and then this is Robin Phillips, the Executive Director of National RTAP, and I will get us going on the presentation. Thanks, Kara.
Thanks. So next screen, please.
See if I can do this. Enter.
Okay, now these are just some easy housekeeping slides about what to do if you're new to GoToWebinar. The control screen on the right will show you everything that you need to know while you're in this webinar. You can open and close your control panel if you don't need to see it by clicking on the orange arrow on the Grab tab. You can move the control panel anywhere on your screen by clicking and dragging. Next slide. You can view the presentation in full screen mode by clicking the blue screen icon in the Grab tab. There are a number of audio options. Under Audio, select the microphone and speakers if you would like to use your computer for the audio portion. Or you could select the telephone and you will see the phone number, access code, and your personal PIN. This is the recommended way to use the audio during this webinar. If you have trouble hearing a speaker, please let us know during the chat box. It's one of the lower boxes. You can submit questions during this webinar anytime via chat. The questions chat box in the control panel. Type in your question in the white box and click Send. We will answer your questions in the order they are received at the end of the webinar after the presenters have finished their presentations. You can also ask your questions via phone by using the mic and speakers. You can click the raise hand icon in the Grab tab, and this will be again after the speakers have finished their presentation. And we will unmute you when it is your turn and remute you when you are done. For the webinar slides and recording, you will see handouts. We have 3 handouts. You can download the presentation slides from this webinar via the handouts in the control panel. We have slides for the webinar that we're doing, also extra slides for general grant writing, and a PDF of a technical brief National RTAP has prepared on grant writing. We will also be able to give you transcripts upon request and about after the webinar. We will also make the slides available on our website, nationalrtap.org, under the webinars button. So that's it for housekeeping, and now we're ready to start the webinar.
Yay, thanks. So also for you that have just joined and are on the phone, we have 3 handouts for this presentation. One is a set of slides that we're going to go through today. One is a grant writing tips that are general grant writing tips that came from our Grant Writing 101 that are just a good reminder list of things to do when you write any grant. And then we have the slides that go with that presentation, and we have that sort of follow along and sort of provide some information about just regular grant writing. So that's the other piece. And now we're going to start the main presentation, and we'll introduce the people who are going to be working with us today. And please think of your questions. These are the people that have gone through it and can give you information right here. Jason Miller is a Senior Transportation Planner with LSC Transportation Consultants, and he's the former Executive Director of Mountain Rides in Ketchum, Idaho. Keith Moody is the General Manager of Cat Bus in the city of Clemson, South Carolina, and he is been doing this for a while, and it's interesting to see a city system stepping up like this. And then Blake Fonsbeck, and he is the Public Works Director in Park City Municipal Corporation. And this, they have a really small town that gets really big with tourists. So it's a very, these are all different environments where the electric bus and the implementations have been, they're working on them, and they have different perspectives. Also, Tara Clark, who runs the no or low emission grant program at FTA, is on the phone with us. And Alon Flippen, who is the rural program manager, is not going to be with us today, but she is also a resource for you and someone that you can call to talk about using 5311 funds or the rural program. And then me, and I'm the Executive Director of National RTAP, and we are here to help get you the information you need about what you're trying to do with your system and help make it happen. So first, I was just going to go over a couple things about writing a grant, and these things all apply to this low and no program. You want to make sure that you know what the project need is. You have to look for the NOFA, but you might also be looking for other partners who are willing to come up to the table and help you purchase these buses because they are really expensive. Then when you're doing this, look at the dates and times and what is going to be needed. Gather all the pieces that information you're going to need, and the people who you might want to support your grant application. Are there people, we're going to talk about this as we do the webinar, but are there people that could help you? And are there people that could stop you? So it's important to make sure you make those contacts now. We're going to talk a little bit about the narrative for a grant, and we're going through the grant writing tips now, but the thing is when you're doing it, you can just run through that and do it once and then do it again. And as all the FTA people I know have said, when you are doing that, it really makes a difference and they appreciate it. So Tara, you want to talk to us about what the low or no emission program is?
Sure do. Hi, Robin. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. And thank you all for attending. And, you know, if I may, Robin, I would like to thank you guys, Robin and National RTAP, as well as our speakers that are on the line with us. Thank you guys so much for working together to put this on, this webinar. I'm very excited because I believe that this is something that's going to be very, very helpful, especially since the Notice of Funding Opportunity for 2018 will be coming out very, very, very shortly. All right, so in terms of the program, the FAST Act authorized the Low or No Emission Program, which is found 49 USC Section 5339C in fiscal year 2016. The program is authorized for 5 years. 2016 was the first year, and it is authorized through 2020. $55 million has been allocated for each year. However, for this year, Congress made available an additional $29.45 million under the fiscal year 18 omnibus spending bill. So for this fiscal year, 2018, we have a total of $84.45 million available for this program. So we're very, very excited about the additional funding. Thank you, Congress. This program provides funding specifically for the purchase or lease of low or no emission buses and supporting infrastructure such as facilities and equipment. And I believe on the slide, it kind of gives an idea of what is considered low or no emission technology, electric, hydrogen, fuel cell, so forth and so on. So what does the program cover? What is an eligible project? Eligible projects include purchase or lease of low or no emission type vehicles, construction, renovation, or acquisition of supporting facilities such as maintenance facilities, purchase of supporting equipment that is necessary to operate or maintain the low or no emission vehicles.
So now, thanks, Tara, and we have our guest speakers who have this experience. And why don't we start off with Blake? And Blake, you want to talk about what your first step was?
So our first step, as we looked at the electric bus technology, was to see where first would it fit in our community. We're a rather hilly community. We have cold temperatures, and so there was a few myths out there and things that we weren't sure about. And so first step was to really see if it would fit in our community, and we started to find some opportunities there where it might fit in our community. So then we had to do a little research and make sure that you are, if it will fit in your community, where will it fit? What route would it fit on? How would you use it? All of those kind of things. So that was probably our very first step, was to see, in the sense that, would it be replacing a diesel bus? Would it be a new route that was specifically designed for the electrics? And so those are some things that we had to look at.
Keith, you want to talk about your program?
Yes, thank you, Robin. We did the same thing. We had to, for our first steps, we needed to identify an area that we could put the electric buses in, because we have a challenging terrain. And we were going another step beyond just having what we call a parade bus. We wanted to have an all-in. So we took, through a partnership with the city of Seneca, we took that entire city and made it 100% zero emission battery electric buses. So we had to do a lot of testing to see if any of that would work. We had the University of Texas come in to research some of it, make sure that the energy storage, that we could be able to go further with this. But that was our first steps.
Cool. And Blake? Oh, not Blake. Sorry. Jason. Sorry, Jason.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I think, for us, it was, at Mountain Rides was really, it started with the dialogue with the community and elected officials that several, city councilors and mayors were coming up to us and saying, look, are there alternatives to diesel vehicles? And if so, what were we doing as an agency to research and look into those? So there was some, community dialogue happening going back a few years, and certainly community political will to see a move to cleaner vehicle propulsion and technology. So that was part of it, and then it really that led at the agency level. The first step was really putting it into an update to a 5-year strategic plan and a path to get about a third of the fleet to battery electric within 5 years. So that was the first step, and then that led to a lot of the other aspects that have been talked about on the technical side that Keith and Blake mentioned on just route profiles and how they might operate.
So all of you have been successful with this, and one of the things that is really different about this grant than like a regular 5339 grant is you find a manufacturing partner. So would you guys like to each talk about how did you find your manufacturing partner and who? We just go in the same order.
Oh, okay. Sorry, this is Blake then, with Park City. So basically what we did was, again, we had pressure from our city council, just like others had mentioned, to move forward with something electric. And so as we researched and looked, I basically decided what we needed, and then I started looking at who could provide that. And we were able to find that Proterra was able to match what we needed at the time. And so with that, we said, okay, you say you can do it, but come up and prove it. And so we set up a demonstration where they came and went on our steepest hills, ran around on the route that we had established. We had established a route right through the center of town, through the center of our area, that would become an express route. And so we needed something that could run all day long, 20, sometimes 22 hours a day. And for electrics, that was something somewhat a little bit unheard of. There was a few people that were moving that direction. So we found our partner, and then we worked with them. They actually helped with making sure that we could meet all of the needs that we had, so that we could run it just like a diesel bus, in the sense of all day long, and not having to take it back to the shop to charge and that. And so that was some of our criteria in setting up and finding that partner. But it was really doing a bunch of research and seeing who could really provide what we needed, and who even had a shot at providing what we needed, so that we could go from there.
Cool. Keith?
Okay. With here in South Carolina, when we started to put this all together, that was back in 2012 when we started the partnership, putting everything together with Seneca, FTA, SCDOT. We also brought in a partner to help us, and that was the Center for Transportation and the Environment, CTE, to help us walk through this. At the time, in 2012, Proterra was the only manufacturer in the game. So we were able to identify them as the only one, in the contract. Then that's when we started bringing in the University of Texas to start getting the data collection, and also CTE, which helped with all of our reporting. They were a major asset to us. I basically have told people that you can do this yourself, but it's like going to court without a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
Having somebody to help pull the different things together, even though Proterra was the only manufacturer at the time.
Great. And
Yeah.
Jason?
Yeah, and this is Jason. I think compared to the two other panelists and their agencies, Mountain Rides was probably, or is still probably behind in terms of the process. So at the time that we submitted the Lono grant, we didn't identify a manufacturing partner, so we opted not to do that, so that we could have more time to kind of get a sense of where the industry was going. We just applied in the most recent round of funding, and that was only about 8 months ago. So at that time, and still now, the industry and manufacturers are quickly, adopting, changing, and developing more options for electric buses. So Mountain Rides was taking more of a wait and see approach there.
So Keith talked about CTE, and there's another on the West Coast. It's called CalStart. Tara, do you want to talk a little bit about what those programs are? Can you explain them? There's something also that we don't really think about when we're doing regular grants.
Yeah, so CalStart and CTE are actually two nonprofit organizations, and their sole purpose is to work within the industry and work with transit agencies who are interested in transitioning to primarily zero emission vehicles. So CalSTART is on the West Coast, California, and CTE is based in Atlanta. They have clients. They work with properties all over the country, and I know specifically CTE has actually done some work for FTA. They have been a grantee in the past. Very excellent organizations. Last year, they were gracious enough to put on a couple of webinars for us, which are posted on the Low-No page on the FTA website. But if you can get a consultant, if that's, I know it's tough with budgets these days, but those two nonprofits are definitely, I would say, the best, because they are very versed in the technologies, and they are very aware of the manufacturers and all of the intricacies that go along with zero emission buses.
That's great.
Robin,
so, Blake, go ahead.
Robin, this is Keith. I just wanted to add, if you didn't mind.
Oh, go ahead.
That was how we determined on our first round. We since have been awarded again to get more electric buses, and we did its selection through an RFI, and we had the different bus manufacturers this time put a bus at our location to test before we opened the RFP. Just wanted to add that piece.
Yeah, and I think that that each of your situations you started in the process at different points in time, and then approached it slightly differently for each of you, and it has it's had different types of success. I think they all have been successful, but it's just different things are going on with the programs. So as we
Robin,
have been working on this, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, it's Jason. Just wanted to mention that in addition to some of those national resources that have been mentioned, oftentimes there's good partnership opportunities with smaller local organizations. We found that for mountain rides, there was a local resilience institute nonprofit working on on the ground kind of initiatives related to energy and the environment, and they were doing an electric vehicle promotion on just regular passenger vehicles for people to get a discount if they were wanting to purchase a EV vehicle for themselves, and so they had some resources and provided some technical support to the project or to the application.
Yeah, that's a great example, because this is oftentimes a partnership between communities, the state, and even regional or local environmental programs, and you. And they may be thinking about your electric bus before you are, and are really excited about bringing electric vehicles into their community. So the thing that is another part of this that's different, this program that's different, is that there's a supplemental application. And so the rest of the webinar, we really are walking through how you would fill it out. And the people who are on this webinar have done it, and they did it right. So their understanding about this is really helpful. So it says description of services. With your you have the Clemson system. How you initially defined it as the city of Seneca, but now how are you going to define your next round, Keith?
Well, yes, we did. We started by taking the city of Seneca and made it 100%. It was nobody at the time had ever taken a city and went 100%. So we stepped out on the limb, did that. We've been successful for going on 4 years with that system. It's not been tainted with any diesel. We're seeing that just in maintenance costs alone, we're saving about $1 per mile. So with that success, we are coming across the lake to the other cities. We serve 3 counties, 4 cities, 5 universities. Excuse me, 5 cities and 4 universities. Got it backwards, sorry. So we're going into the other cities that we serve. But this is the Seneca model is set up on the quick charge system, which said that we'd have about 30 miles to run, and then you have to charge. That would be about once every hour. Our drivers have gotten very efficient with them. We're getting more than that out of them. But with our Clemson area, we have to have the long range buses that we can go 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's going to require a different type of bus. We can't use the quick charges. We have to have the long range. So that's getting ready to hit the streets in August or September of this year. That'll be a little over half of our fleet will be electric then.
And so that, I mean, that's one of the things that's important is sort of to understand the area that it's going to happen in. And I was thinking that it was Blake who, no, it was Jason who when they put in their application that they were going to do this, they wanted to do the system, but then they only received half of the grant money they asked for, and so they had to downsize their project. But I think it's important to do, to let people know sort of the breadth of what you do and who you're serving. So what was the name of your project? Oh yeah, go ahead.
This is Blake. I was just gonna say, so ours actually we originally asked for 6 buses, and it was going to be around a little over $6 million, and we received $3.9 million. And so we actually, before we applied for the grant, we figured out a way to lease the batteries, which reduced the cost. And so we were still able to, even before we submitted the grant. So that's something that people should keep in mind is what's your contingency plan when you're given only half or something of what you've been asking for, and how would you adjust to that? So we were able to still get the 6 buses, but then we leased the batteries in a different form, and so that saved us, and we were able to implement the full project that we asked for.
Project. Right. That's great. So after you, like, say you're buying your X buses for this community, what Tara has talked about and what the FTA said they were looking for is when you're giving this project executive summary, how does this project itself fit into your plan? And you've heard from the panelists that they had community interest, and it was putting this service in from a 30,000 foot level was part of responding to community demand and needs in the community. So it's not, you don't have to be in great detail, but this is the transit system taking this next step. It's a way of saying how this fits into the existing world that you have. And when you're making that project up, you want to be looking at not just the vehicle, but how are you going to charge it? How are you going to maintain it? What type of charging do you need for the route that you want to turn into electric? You heard the panelists talk about, well, I had a fast charging and then I had long distance, that we have different buses and different types of charging for different service designs. And so it's just something to keep in mind as you're looking at, well, what what am I asking for? How much is it going to cost me? And I know that the manufacturers are really going to help you. They want you to be successful too. If you, and this one, you just check the box to say what type of power you're going to be using. But keep in mind all the other pieces. People that are eligible for this need to, direct recipients can apply, and subgrantees in partnership with a direct recipient can apply. So if you're MPO and there's a transit, you can apply through the MPO to get your money. If you're a 5311 recipient and you are wanting to go into the electrical world, then talk to your state operator or your state program, and they will work with you to do that. Also, if you can do that if you're a transit agency or a tribe. Tribes, if they are direct recipients in the 5311C program, they are also eligible to do these applications on their own. They can directly receive the money. So it's just something to be aware of for smaller rural systems, that you need to have that MPO or that direct recipient partner to make this work. So as we were talking about earlier, the partnerships for implementing these grants are really important. And you have to have that state partner, but you've heard us talk about CTE and CalSTART, who can be facilitating this initial implementation and helping you keep your timelines and your process, to a schedule so you understand what's happening. And then you have your community, and it sounds like in a lot of instances, the community is saying, hey, can't we do more environmentally friendly buses? Can't we, and even if your community is saying, hey, can't we reduce maintenance costs and fuel costs? These are all pieces that you want to bring together for the application. So do each of you guys want to talk a little bit about how the partnership kind of worked for your grant application, who you brought in, and sort of what you did with those partnerships? I think one of you guys had a power company that was a partner.
So this is Blake Fonsbeck from Park City. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dave.
Go ahead. No. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Blake.
This is Blake Fonsbeck from Park City. As we were putting together our first project, we initially didn't necessarily have a lot of support from our power company, and then we turned around, and as we went into our second grant opportunity, we started to, suddenly the power company realized that everybody was switching to LEDs and they needed some power customers, and so they were suddenly on board, and we were able to receive enough money to cover half of the installation cost, or half of the cost for one of our charge stations that we put in for the grant. We also received some assistance from various agencies in the state as far as letters of support, and then also our bus manufacturer was part of our partnership as well. And are you with Proterra as well? Yes, we're with Proterra on both of the grants that we've received.
Mm-hmm. And Jason?
Yeah, this is Jason. Yeah, we had reached out to we had reached out to our power utility, Idaho Power, and got support for the project. Was able to get a support letter and generate interest, and they continue to be a partner as the project moves forward. But I think that was helpful to get their involvement and excitement, have that as a formal piece of support for the grant application. And lots of local support too, and like I mentioned, some local nonprofit support as well. That was helpful, I think, in the overall grant package.
Cool.
And this is Keith. We too had the power company involved, and I think it's very important, like the other two properties, because I understand, if I'm not mistaken, that the power companies actually get fined when they don't have a levelized load. So when you go to them and you're talking about peaks during the day, but even more so when you go into the evening service of charging your buses during the off-peak time, that'll help levelize their load, and that makes them look better. So when we started talking to them about the nighttime trickle charging of the long-range buses, we had a lot of buy-in from the local power company.
Cool.
Of course,
yeah, it's one of those things that you don't think about. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, wait a minute. These people would have a lot of interest. So and every place is different, but there are some real strengths to they figure out different ways to support the process. Okay. So demonstration of needs. So for each of you, could you just say what was your, what did you say? Was it useful life? Was it expansion? So Jason?
Sure. Yeah, it was really, I think, in the grant application that Mountain Rides put together that was focused on just buses that needed to be replaced, and instead of replacing them with diesel buses, replacing them with battery electric. So it was buses that definitely were at their or above their useful life, and just kind of rolling in to the fleet, a transition that was kind of happening anyway, an opportunity that instead of replacing in 2017, 2018, a bus that is going to have a 12-year life, replacing that with just a normal diesel bus versus replacing that with a battery electric, I think was powerful. That that was a replacement that was going to happen anyway, and why not make that replacement with the battery electric for all the reasons we've been talking about here.
Yep. Keith?
We had similar. We had buses at their useful life, actually beyond their useful life. We wanted to have something more efficient, environmentally friendly. Being the beautiful area where that we're at, we just wanted something that's going to go beyond what the diesels are. And from everything that we were studying, what the electrics were supposed to do, we thought we'd take the chance on that. And they've lived up and beyond what they were supposed to. But ours was also
very unusual. That's good maintenance management too. And Blake.
So we had two different projects. Our first project for 6 buses was an expansion project. We basically, we had a distance of 6.1 miles that was taking people a long time to traverse on our regular bus system. And so we needed to put in an express link that went right in between. And it seemed like the electrics was the first, with the fast charge from Proterra, was the first ones that we felt could actually do this with, and so we did those 6 with expansion, and that's been very successful. That carries almost a quarter of our ridership on this particular expansion now, and then the second grant that we applied for was to replace 7 diesel buses that were up for replacement and had reached their useful life. And so with that, we tied it together. I think that's one of the things that we did differently, is we tied the grant, and we only asked for basically enough to cover the extra amount that it would cost us to purchase electrics and the charge systems over a diesel. So we tied it with our current grant that we had to replace those 7 diesel buses, and then added this grant on top to help supplement for the electrics.
Great. So, Jason, you want to talk about what have been the benefits?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything you've got here on this slide is true, and we've hit on some of these aspects already. But for the community that Mountain Rides operates in, that relies a lot, like Park City, a lot on tourism, and is a pretty narrow mountain valley. Air quality, even though it's not a non-attainment area, air quality is a big deal, and noise is a big deal in terms of just impacting the quality of life and the overall experience there. I think was a big thing. What we saw and heard there as we went through this application process was also that through some survey work that we did, that there were a lot of locals and visitors that were more likely to consider taking the bus if it were electric, just kind of based on a little bit of cachet, I guess, and kind of attractiveness that a diesel bus doesn't always get you. So that's just something else I'd add, is that I think there's definitely some ridership benefits and awareness of battery electric vehicles. Lots in that area, lots of Teslas and Volts and other electric vehicles running around. So there's some awareness of the benefits, and seeing an electric bus conveyed, at least in the survey work, for some ridership growth.
Cool. Keith?
I agree with that, and as we all know, that the millennials seem to be more in tap with more the efficiencies and environmental friendly vehicles. Some of the things that we're seeing over the almost 4 years, just throwing out some of the numbers that we're experiencing with our fleet that's over in the city of Seneca. We're running about 3,400 miles per week. So that's about 180 times a week that we charge a bus, which eliminates 700 gallons of diesel fuel per week. And per month, the electric buses have saved over 68,000 pounds of greenhouse gases. It's like we planted over 1,400 trees. Now, with the next round of buses, we're looking at the electric buses saving over 19.5 million pounds of carbon dioxide emissions. And that'd be equivalent of planting over 406,000 trees. So when you look at those numbers and dealing with people that are getting more in tune with environment friendly, and then when you start looking at your operating costs, and when you, like I said earlier, your maintenance alone, we're saving about $1 per mile in just maintenance. That's something that you can't ignore.
No, not at all. Blake, do you have anything to add to your experience?
Well, just again, we're saving about, we're finding if we'd have run diesels on that same route, we're saving about $10,000 a month that we're saving. We're putting a lot of miles on these buses, about 90,000 miles a year, and so we're saving about $10,000 a month. The other side of it is the route that we have goes right up through the middle of our community, and the comments we get from our community is one, they're so excited about the Electric Express. We made sure that it was very much a different looking bus than the others, and you see it every 10 minutes. So we have 10-minute frequency on that route. and they're able to see it all the time, and they hear it, or they don't hear it all the time compared to the diesel buses that also run on those same roads. And so everybody's saying, hey, can we have electrics on our route and everything? So everybody's really excited about it. It's very quiet, and but the biggest thing I think was just getting it so that people really see it. It's right there, and we've had our ridership has increased by 10% over our system since we've added this.
Wow.
And people basically, they get on the bus, and because it's electric, we put Wi-Fi and actually USB ports where they could plug in, and I've watched them, and they just all get on, plug in. Even if it's charging for a few minutes, they don't care. They just sit on there quietly. It's quiet. It's not noisy, so they just sit on there and play on their phones and iPads and stuff. So.
Wow, neat. So how we had, I think it was Keith that was talking.
Yes. Are we still connected?
I can still hear you, Keith.
I can hear you, Sarah.
Yep, I can hear everybody.
Robin must have just gotten disconnected.
While we're waiting for Robin to come back, just put in a little plug that we've had people riding our buses in the community that like parents and grandparents, they'll bring their little ones on the bus just to go for a ride.
Yeah, Keith, that's the same thing we experienced as well, is we actually had people coming up from Salt Lake to ride the Electric Express. So that's now become a tourist thing.
That's cool.
Okay, so Robin's phone failed. Let's see if I can get the, oh no, she's still able to get the slides. So this next slide.
There we go. Hi, Kara. Sorry.
Oh, good. Here's Robin. I thought I was going to have to wing it. Glad you're back.
I don't know what that was about. Usually, I mean, I didn't even say call failed, and then I got a note saying I was disconnected from the GoToWebinar server. Like, whoa. Okay. So anyway, Keith, Jason, and Blake, we're going to talk a little bit about how they got in, what plans they got into, or what, where they got the plan. They have to be in a plan in order to get the money. So what plans were you in? Jason, you want to go?
Sure, happy to. Yeah, so Mountain Rides is in a rural area without an MPO. The planning that incorporated this transition to battery electric was largely local planning, inclusion in budgeting, and also in Mountain Ride's 5-year transit development plan. And then in addition to that, it was just, coordination with the state and the state TIP, and just making sure that that there was a placeholder there for that. But the coordination and the state was the funding applicant in Mountain Ride's case, and it was just coordinated as Mountain Rides is a subrecipient.
Hey, Keith?
And we were about the same when it came to a lot of that with the plan. Not much to add on top of that, I'm sorry.
Are you guys are not an MPO?
No, we were, that is one thing different. Thanks. We were a rural system when we started the Seneca system. Now we have transitioned and we jumped to, since the census, and became a large urban. So now we're doing, it's a little different from the first go round. So a little bit different plans. That's where we did the RFI instead of just going right straight to the RFP.
Okay. And Blake?
And for Park City, we're also under a recipient under the state, and so we actually had it in our short range. We just we were right at the point when electric started getting an influence and actually being possible. We were also doing our short range transit development plan, our 5 to 7 year plan. So we were able to put that in, and then we were able to update our state TIP plan as well, and make sure that we got that in there. So those are the two areas that we were involved with.
Local financial commitment. Match can be cash on hand for the project, and you heard people on the panel talking earlier about how they took the existing reserve fund or money that they had set aside or were receiving for vehicle replacement, and then when they did their grant application, did the marginal cost on top of that to go electric rather than 100%. Also, I know that one of the panelists, they had an area that they were planning on implementing electric. They had vehicles that hadn't reached their useful life, so they traded those vehicles out into a route or a system that was not going electric, and so that they didn't have to sell the diesel vehicles that they were replacing, but they were able to replace the diesel vehicles in their system, not necessarily on that route, by basically just moving things around. And sometimes there's money that your state has that'll help support this, foundation grants, local in-kind assistance. Like I think it was Blake that was talking about how the power company at first was not all that interested in Park City, but then realized that this was something that would be an ongoing partner for a long time. So it made sense to help them move towards an electric system, and so helped pay for one of the charging stations. So that's one of the things about being in a plan and also reaching out to partners is you don't know who is going to have something that will benefit you until they know what you need. And so that helps. Did any of you receive any assistance in implementing or the wiring or putting together your charging stations in cities?
This is Blake from Park City. You'd mentioned I think our biggest was just from Rocky Mount or from the power company, and but we did on our second grant. We actually did also receive a commitment from the actual bus manufacturer to reduce the prices on it, by basically a $25,000 commitment per bus to reduce prices to help with things as well. Great.
So that's when they know that you're committed to doing this, and that they're not going to, you only can do so much. This is the money that you have, and it really is a great advertisement for the rest of the country. So how did you manage the implementation strategy? So I know that Keith worked with CTE, and how did that go, Keith, working with them?
CTE has been a great partner in this whole project, being able to dot the I's and cross the T's. They've done this time and time again and walked us through different areas that was kind of new to us. They helped with all the reporting, was able to get the correct stuff, and also not only reporting to FTA, but also giving us reports so that we can see what we're doing, how we can make things better, and then preparing us for the next steps. We're headed toward 100% electric. They're able to walk us through some of that and how to get us ready for it.
Great. Do Jason or Blake have anything to add about how you put together your project implementation strategy?
So this is Blake from Park City. We actually were kind of our own project managers with this. We'd had a lot of experience with federal grants and working through the process of federal projects, and so we had several people on staff that were very very knowledgeable and worked with that. We also worked heavily with our state agency as well, or Utah Department of Transportation, to help us as well. But we basically worked through a lot of those things on our own. It was a little interesting for us because we were expecting to actually implement our 6 buses in June of 2018, and we were told as soon as we got the grant that there was an opening for 6 buses at Proterra because another company or another city had dropped out, and that if we could hurry and order, we could get those in and get them ready a year in advance. And that caused us to do a lot of scrambling. We put a lot of extra time in. So it was kind of a lot of maybe harder than what we'd planned, but we still were able to make it happen, and they've been running since June of last year. So.
Wow, that's great. Blake? Oh no, that was Blake. Jason.
Yeah, this is Jason. Yeah, I think on this one, it's I don't have a lot to add except to just say that being flexible is key. I think that Mountain Rides had a strategy that we were looking at fast charging, on route charging, and purchase of 2 buses, and the grant award was less than requested, and that combined with industry kind of advances and changes towards more battery capacity and overnight charging, that may be the direction from fast charging on route to overnight slow charge might be a project implementation change, partially driven by changes in the industry and also by just the funding received. So just kind of flexibility in kind of how you look at your implementation, I think is important. Kind of that plan A, plan B, and maybe even plan C as you're thinking through it.
Yep. Thanks. So also there's a thing where you say that you have the technical, legal, financial capacity. That just means, have you received federal funds and managed federal funds? Are you eligible for these grant funds? So if you're a transit and you're a rural transit, you need to be working with your state. So you can put this application in. Have you been successful in managing a project of this size, meaning this dollar size mainly, and breadth, because you're looking at infrastructure, you're looking at capital purchases, and you're looking at, will you be able to maintain these buses? So there's, everyone who gets into this has to have a certain level of experience and capacity. Project budget, you want to make sure that you put in for the equipment, for the charging, for the maintenance, and you can also put in for training your staff that are going to be doing the maintenance. If you're in a rural area, not training your staff puts you at risk. Even if you're not going to have, if your buses are brand new, you want to make sure that you do have people there that understand how to work with batteries and work with electrical systems. So, scalability.
Robin.
Yeah, go ahead.
Robin, could I?
Yeah.
I just want to add, along with the operator training, another thing that we added to the plan was first responder training, because a lot of your first responders don't know how to respond to an electric bus. Because we have had a accident with one of the electric buses that a diesel would not have been able to pull away from. And if we didn't have the first responders trained, somebody could have been hurt very bad.
That is something to really keep in mind, because you don't need it until you need it, and then you really need it. So that's you don't want people to be surprised about this stuff if they're going to be involved in an emergency situation.
Right, and then with your
go ahead.
also your fleet maintenance plan has to change, because your electric buses don't do the same as your diesels.
Right. So you're not just changing, the amount of fuel, you're changing the rhythm of how you're taking care of the buses. So project scalability. We've been talking about that throughout this conversation, but one of the things that came up is the flexibility is important. If you're asking for, like Seneca, changing your whole system, and then they give you enough to change a route, well, what would it take for you to make the initial implementation and then go back for more vehicles to complete it? Just having in mind that being flexible means that instead of purchasing your batteries, you're going to lease your batteries. So I think that this question on the application is just to help you be aware of those things. Matching funds. We all love match. We wish we had more of it. It's a very important part of making these things work. But these people, I think Blake talked about it with Rocky Mountain Power, where initially they helped them implement a charging station, and now they are helping in other ways. Idaho Power, they're interested, and that having them engage, and that's a relationship that can be a positive one for them and for you. So looking at that, just when you're answering the question, define what it is, and make sure that it's clear whether it's just this one-off or you're developing an ongoing relationship with them. Timeline. When you receive the funds, what happens day one? And then when are you done with the project? When you are in service. So let's remember to give yourself time, work backwards, and create some space around your timeline. You're not trying to get it done as fast as you think you can do it. You want to have something as accurate as you think you can be. And sometimes good things happen, and all of a sudden you're able to make hay or make lemonade out of someone's problem and get your buses early. Yeah? Yeah,
that's correct.
Which I think goes back to the flexible. Congressional districts, where will this be implemented? Is it in one district? Is it in two districts? Has the district changed since your last application? Are you going between states? And this is a minimum. For a good project, you should make sure that your senators know about it, that your local elected officials, your state elected officials know you're doing this, because again, they want you to be successful, because your success is their success, and that can open up opportunities. I know that it's not just your congressman that votes on the budget. And as Tara said at the beginning of this, we've got $87 million to put into this program this year, which is a whole lot if you're buying non-electric buses. But for electric buses, this is great. I mean, we'll be able to get a bunch more buses on the road. So let your elected officials know what you're doing. So we talked about this at the end before, and we said what kind of resources did people use. I put the information from the FTA website, which Tara has put together. It is fantastic. And bus manufacturers, these are the ones that are there. There's ones that are coming up too that have been working in other countries. So so I would like each of you, before we sign off and are done as our last thing, what would you do differently with your project? What did you find out that you would do now that you didn't do before? Keith, you want to go first?
Okay. The first time around, we tried, along with CTE coaching us, I think we did a lot of the good things where we studied the areas that we wanted. They helped us oversee the building of the buses. One thing that I would stress is once you've picked out your area that you want to operate and you do get the buses delivered, even though you've done all your testing, we put the buses into shadow service. They had to do 180 hours, which is enough hours for 1 week that the bus had to deliver without any problems, no issues. And once they could do 180 hours with no interruption, then we would accept the buses. So that's what we're doing, with our system.
It makes sense. You don't want to basically pull the trigger before you've aimed. You want to know what you need reliability. People rely on your services, and so if you can't rely on this brand new thing, you should not be making people whose livelihoods depend on it rely on it.
Correct, because one little hiccup with brand new technology, the media and the public will take you down. So we had to have it perfect.
Yeah. Blake?
A couple of things. I think we would have, since we were kind of reacting so quickly the first time and moving through with that opportunity to get the buses early, we didn't have our second charge station online at the same time. And so we ran for almost 6 months with just one charge station, and we have the fast charge buses. And I think differently. If I'd have known that was going to cause me to stay up at night so many times in my mind, worrying about that one charge station going down, I would have made sure that we had both charge stations up at the same time. But we crossed our fingers. I think they're permanently in that direction right now. But anyway, but we crossed our fingers, and I just can't get them back. They're stuck that way. But then the other thing is that this was the first grant that we had ever just actually partnered with a company, and I think I would have explained that better to our legal team, our own city legal team, because they were so used to the traditional RFP method that it took us to get our contract signed on these buses. It took us about 2 months to get our legal team to understand that we actually partnered and that the Lono grant allowed us to do that. They just didn't want to hear that, and so we had to do a lot of working with them. So I think I would have brought them on board a lot sooner.
Yeah, I think that's really true when you're working with local government. Is you may have the council on board or the program staff at the DOT, but if you don't have the people who are going to be managing the contract, understand it, it can really throw a big rock in your milestones.
Yeah.
And Jason.
We got through it, but it was 2 months of wasted time.
Yeah. No, I've been there with other projects. It's just like, sometimes you feel like a ping pong ball.
Yeah.
So thank you. These are great. Jason, do you have any like do-over? If I were going to do over, what would I do?
Yeah, I think it's related to what Blake was talking about. I mean, notwithstanding the problems with getting legal and contracts folks on board, I think going back and having a manufacturer partner has more advantages than it does downsides. And I think if Mountain Rides would have had that going in, that would have resulted in probably a better time frame, after the fact, because there's going to have to be more of a traditional procurement to determine that partner.
So, do you guys online have questions? And Tara, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think you guys were amazing, and I once again, I really thank you all so much. I think whenever we can have the actual agencies or the actual properties, folks from the properties come on and talk about their process, I think it's so much more helpful than anything that I can say. So thank you again. But other than that, look for Lono to come out soon. And if you have any questions, about the notice or anything, please feel free to contact me.
And there are some questions, so we do have time for them. Thank you, Tara. I'll read the questions aloud in the order they came, and then type up the answers so you can see them as they're answered. So the first question is, what about smaller vehicles? Would this fund SUVs, cars, minivans, etc.?
That sounds like a Tara thing.
Yeah, that's a Tara question. And that's something that we've been talking about. I'm not really sure, and I'm still learning new information every day. I'm not really sure how many small vehicles there are on the market yet. I'm not sure. But for the most part, I can speak to the last couple of years. The applications that we've received have been for buses. And I think that is the intent, to fund primarily buses, things for public transit. But again, I would have to, that may be a question you may have to email me on, because I think it's more than just a yes or no answer, because the market is continuing to evolve and new things are happening. So especially since we want to get the smaller agencies involved, that may be something that we may have to explore over the next few years.
Okay, and we'll be posting our questions and answers, so if you find out more information, Tara, we can add that to your answer. Okay, the next question is for Ketchum. Did Ketchum obtain an award with the last process 8 months ago?
Yes. Yes, Mountain Rides in Ketchum received a $500,000 award, and that was lower than applied for. It was a $1.8 million application for 2 buses and on route charging. So the project has had to change significantly, but it basically now the approach for Mountain Rides is to use that $500,000 as incremental in combination with other 5339 funds, replacement funds that would have gone to a diesel bus, take a diesel bus at $400,000 and then add 250 for times 2 to do battery electric and look towards more of a slower charge, which the infrastructure is a lot lot lower cost there, or the overnight charging, depot charging. So that's where it is, and also look to potential, future awards to supplement that. And that was the first award that Mountain Rides had received for electric.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jason. Now, this is a question on fuel cell buses.
That's a Tara question. That's a Tara question.
Okay, I'll take it. All right. So the question is, are fuel cell buses eligible?
Well, what's going on with them? Is there any, are people getting them? They're eligible, but sort of where is that technology at?
Yeah, they're eligible for funding. There are some agencies in California. Specifically, I'm thinking of, I believe it's Sun Transit. They actually received an award in 2016 for a facility to support hydrogen fuel cell buses. So there are some agencies, a few agencies that are going with hydrogen fuel cell technology. And it's definitely eligible. It's zero emission. Actually, the National Fuel Cell Bus Project is something that FTA had a part in. I believe on the Lono page there is a video on fuel cell buses. So I think that technology is not, I think battery electric from what I've seen is more popular, but hydrogen fuel cell definitely I'm seeing more and more interest in it, especially in California. Definitely in California, out in the West Coast, on the West Coast.
It looks
great.
It looks like the other questions.
One more question, yeah. Not sure. This is a question from Darren. My answer above, which it looks like about Ketchum again, was partly answered with half of the request. Oh, okay, so that was already answered. What was the award? That was the 550. And that's it for questions, unless anybody else wants to ask one now.
I think that we have completed everything, and we've done it in time. And I really appreciate the panelists and the good information you provided, and I'm sure it's helped. We had a good turnout for this, and I think it'll help Tara get better applications, and it'll help all of you write better applications and get more buses, because that's what we like, is more buses. So Kara, do you want to talk about our, let's see, maybe I can do this. We'll have this webinar up on our website in about a week. We have appended the contact information for our panelists. National RTAP will have the recording posted on our webinar drop-down box. If you are a rural transit and haven't used RTAP resources, just give us a call. We have these recordings available. Also, the Grant Writing 101 recording is available for you to refresh your grant writing skills. And we're here to help you be successful. So thank you very much. And thank you so much, Tara, for thinking of us. And I hope that this gets you all of the these great proposals so you can award all your money to these wonderful rural agencies.
Yes, thank you all. Thank you very much. Looking forward to it.
Okay, bye-bye.